felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds.
Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Hey, what did the grilled cheese sandwich say to their date?
What'd they say?
You make me melt.
Oh, so cheesy.
But not as cheesy as Subway's latest Eat Fresh, Refresh menu innovation. The new Fresh Melts with 3 times the cheese. Fresh Melts are the cheese lover's holy grail. Fresh Melts combine freshly baked breads and your favorite meats topped with a triple load of cheese. All grilled to warm, toasty perfection. Try the ham and cheese melt, tuna melt, or steak and cheese melt to start. Best of all, you can make any footlong into a fresh melt. At Subway, eat fresh.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I hope I made myself clear there, Jose. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you better not infringe the right of the people to keep and bear arms out there, Democrats. I know that's what you'd really, really like to do, but I'm not going to allow it. Okay, so here we are in another exciting episode of Tall Tales in the middle of the week. Jose and I are still happy. We still got 3 whole days of Tall Tales ahead of us. Let's go straight to Zemi Ikotny. No blue stars today. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat that this editorial, I think, is a statement of bad editorial policy. And if you're a tailgater, you know that I've never been on the marijuana bandwagon. Never have. I suspect that probably I never will. And my rap has always been this. We have so many problems with drugs in our community and have had ever since the heroin days back in the 70s. Perhaps the most serious social problem that we have. I don't see the sense of adding another mind-altering drug to the to the mix. It just doesn't make sense to me. I've often said that if marijuana really has a medical dimension, then I think the way to pursue it is for Congress to take it off Schedule 1, put it on Schedule 2 so that we can do some research. And if, in fact, it does have a medicinal value, fine. We know how to deal with medicine. It's called the Food and Drug Administration. We don't need the likes of where's my paper here? We don't need the likes of, I should have that thing handy. I didn't get my paper straightened out today, unfortunately. Well, you know what I'm going to say. We don't need the likes of Vanessa Williams. I've got the editorial. I'm just looking for my Vanessa Williams quote, and I didn't lay it out where I could find it. Thanks, Jose. Yeah, we don't need the likes of Vanessa Williams and her pro-abortion rap which causes me, obviously I don't care much for the rap, but I question the efficacy of putting that kind of rap in charge of something like what I think is a deleterious drug. Of course, we backed into marijuana thanks to Tina Rose Munga Barnes. Big sales we'll just do medicinal marijuana. It's so good, it cures everything from athlete's foot to chronic dandruff and everything in between. So let's just do that. And of course, we spent a lot of time and effort on that. And when we got that point, we found out we can't do it. We don't have the labs. We don't have any of the stuff necessary to do it. Well, then what we'll do is we'll just have adult marijuana, and sick people can get it just like everybody else.
It was a classic bait and switch for me.
It was indeed. And then that didn't work either. So now we said, well, you can grow it at home. Just don't grow too much and don't sell it or trade it for anything. Yeah, I'm sure that's how it's going to work. And of course, the rest of the country, some states have done the same thing that Guam has done, but it's still against federal law. And you know how hard I am on feds. I don't even like to use the word federal because we don't have a federal government. We have a national government. So I'm on that all of the time. But the national government, even the banking regulations don't contemplate money derived from marijuana. So it's one of those things that if you're going to do it right or let it go. And I'd say let it go unless you can come out with a compelling argument why we need another mind-altering drug on our island here. And I've heard all of it's not as bad as alcohol, et cetera. Well, the same thing goes for alcohol. It's unfortunate, but alcohol has been around for a couple thousand years, and we're stuck with it. The only thing we can do is try to ameliorate the bad effects, which we have made a dramatic inroad on compared to when I first started drinking. And I got to brag a little bit here, Jose. I haven't had a drink this century. Not since 1999.
Good for you.
Yeah. This millennium, a whole millennium alcohol-free. But, back when I started drinking, at least in Wisconsin, the blood alcohol limit was 0.15. It's 0.08 now. And it was just a regular part of people's routine. Shall we go to the movies on Friday night or go down to Ward's Tavern and get drunk? Let's go to the movies Friday and we'll go to Ward's on Saturday. I mean, it was just part and parcel of society in those days. And it's just really, the corner has really been turned. Drinking is not all that cool anymore. It's still a problem, but not as much of a problem as it has been. And I think you can attach a lot of the credit to that outfit called Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
They are mad.
Yeah, mad. They were pretty mad about the whole thing. A lady named Leitner, what was her first name? Her child was killed by a drunk driver. She really got a bee under her bonnet, started mad. Okay, so here's the editorial. Times change, attitudes shift, and every now and then research and science prove that what we once knew for certain just isn't so.
I didn't know this was a COVID editorial. Yeah. Oh, wait, it's not.
Yeah. Whenever, I used to think science was great because I used to understand what science meant. Science meant that people would deal with things that were not well understood or perhaps even unknown. And they would experiment with these things, and once they found out what the key was, what was really going on, they would write up their experiments, and if others could duplicate it, then it was scientifically proven. It doesn't mean that anymore. Now it means come up with a narrative to justify what you really want to do, and you don't really understand what you want, why you want to do it, but you don't want to do it anyhow.
It's a political consensus now.
Exactly, yeah. The science is proved, right? Times change, attitudes shift, and every now and then research and science prove that what we once knew for certain just isn't so. This is kind of the living constitution approach to life, right? Like smoking while pregnant. It wasn't until the mid-20th century when scientists began studying the harmful effects of cigarettes on pregnancy. Today, it's the number one espoused by all obstetricians to soon-be moms. No smoking while pregnant. But just as the notion to stay away from cigarettes while pregnant took time to gain ground, so too is the ongoing movement to change the public perspective on marijuana use. Now, Jose, what fruit analogy did you use yesterday?
Apples and oranges.
Yeah, and that's perfect. The apples, of course, are the narrative. The oranges are the truth.
I like how their analogy is a fact versus opinion.
Yeah. And on the one hand, they said, well, we thought it wasn't harmful, and now we've decided it is, so we've changed our behavior. And then they go the other way around with marijuana, you know. And I have yet to see the research that shows that marijuana is the kind of thing that everybody should, you know, it's not like vitamin D. Yeah, we on Guam remain bogged down in the legal and regulatory processes necessary to get a profitable industry off the ground. The marijuana movement is moving all on its own. Take, for example, the event, quote, A Night in Havana, held at Telefo Bay Saturday. Hundreds of marijuana proponents, growers, aficionados, amateurs, and interested attendees took part in a one-night festival to share stories, strains, and techniques. I'm so happy for them.
Where's Havana
at? Cuba.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that kind of fits in, doesn't it? Yeah. But, you know, A Night in Havana was attended by, of course, aficionados. Yeah. While selling any marijuana or edible products for profit remains against the law, Guam is hovering in a gray area where everything but making a profit is legal. Senator Clint Ridgell, one of the local marijuana movement's most vocal advocates in the Guam legislature, remind me of that in November, will you please, was there. I think the event, quote, I think the event showcased how important cannabis is for a lot of people.
Or a niche.
Yeah, cannabis is for a lot of people. Yeah, my drugs are really important to me. Yeah, cannabis is right up there in the top of the list. Is another step towards normalizing cannabis.
At least you got a word right.
Yeah, instead of normalcy, right? I believe that one day cannabis consumption will be as normal as having a beer after work or sipping on wine at a restaurant. Cannabis is, in fact, safer than alcohol, as there are 0 recorded deaths due to overdose from cannabis. That's the point. Cannabis is safer than alcohol.
That's not how it works, though. I understand where he's trying to come from, but that's not how it works.
No.
We're fighting this whole died from COVID thing, too. And so far, no one's died directly from COVID.
Right. Yeah, if you're familiar with the Andrew Camacho protocol, legal and regulatory processes are necessary for consumer health and public safety, but Guam has got to get rolling so we can maximize this potentially new and lucrative revenue stream, especially at this critical economic juncture of Wuhan virus. And as the nation urges their representatives to push forward on measures like the Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act to ensure those in the marijuana industry have a safe and legal way to conduct their financial business, we urge our legislators to push forward with the same steam here on Guam. The Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands already is showing that it can be done. Congress and national leaders have legislation in motion, and Guam's marijuana enthusiasts are fueling the movement legally. It's time to give them the tools and regulations they need to conduct a private business safely. Maybe we should have a cannabis club in high school, right? So that the kids can learn about this valuable industry. Yeah, okay. Where's my green pencil?
Why does it have to be green, Bob?
Well, that's what I use to mark low grades. Yeah, and besides that, it's so symbolic when it comes necessary to give an F to an environmental wacko. All right, well, let's go to the final chapter of the KBJ curriculum. You remember Ketanji Brown Jackson, when asked in her hearing before the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. Senate relative to her confirmation to the Supreme Court to define what a woman was, she said, "I don't know. I'm not a biologist." So here we go on Ketanji's curriculum for those who think they might someday be questioned by the Judiciary Committee of the United States Senate. So go ahead, Jose. You can be Bud Abbott. I'll be Lou Costello. All right, you'll be the straight man.
All right. Let's see. We're coming down to the final
9.
exam. Yes.
Yeah.
So Bob, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
How should I know, Jose? I'm not an egg producer. I'm a man.
Yes, sir, you are.
Men don't produce eggs. That's women, remember?
Unless you identify as an egg producer.
You identify as an egg producer?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Unless I do, but I don't.
All right.
Okay, number 8. Bob, why did the chicken cross the road?
How should I know, Jose? I'm not a philosopher.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And number 7.
Number 7.
Bob?
As it were, number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah, number 6.
What is Jabberwocky from Alice in Wonderland?
How should I know, Jose? I'm not Kamala Harris. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the weg.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Jabberwocky, it sounds like something Camilla would have said, in one of her scripted speeches. All right, so much for the curriculum. Let's take a peek at the card and see what we've got on the card for today. We start out with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And then, unfortunately, we've got some breaking news about Paul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's on the card, but I'm going to put him first on the card because it is breaking news. We've got Therese versus Lou. Yeah, it's I hate to use this rather derogatory term, but I'll apologize after I say it. It's a regular cat fight. I'm sorry, cats. I shouldn't say things like that about cats. Cats can't help it. Cats can't help it, right?
They were born that way.
Yeah. And then we've got Judy Wonpat 10 versus Talina, and then some more news about. Yeah, so Judy Wonpat 10 is a new name for Tall Tales. It's not just Judy Wonpat, it's Judy Wonpat 10. And then she's possibly running against Talina, and then there's some news that might throw her hat back into the senatorial ring. I guess she's going to have to decide what her name is first, because they're kind of particular about that over at the Election Commission. And then I've got some old stuff here. Ted Cruz, Democrats versus Ted Cruz, and Ketanji versus CRT, Friedman versus insurance companies, Andrew Santos versus the waterworks. That's a pretty interesting one. All right, so here we go. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back to Paul Zerzan, systemic racism.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title. And in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, and next we've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And Paul has kind of worked his way into being one of the heroes of Tall Tales. Every Monday when I show Hope Cristobal's screen test, we have another chance to evaluate Paul's calm, cool demeanor, his unflappable ability to confront absolute anger and stupidity without batting an eyelash. Good for Paul, right? And Paul, of course, was the one who said, hey, look, you guys, you got a narrative about the color of the rice. It ain't red, it's orange, thereby bringing down the anger of the Daily News upon himself. And the latest thing in the world of Paul Zerzan, I'm sorry that I have to announce this, but here it is. Paul Zerzan got fired today. Yeah.
Predicted.
Uh-huh. Yeah, this is the email I got from him today. I was fired today. Since I gave out the 3 case numbers and the 3 dates of injury in the company name, Cortec, and this information came from a file at Workman's Comp, I have disclosed confidential information. They could not understand that the issue of worker safety should be our highest priority, nor could they understand that I went to Guam OSHA in strict confidence, and Guam OSHA violated my confidence, forcing me to go public. Now, in case you've forgotten the build-up to this, I'll go back to that. March 26th, Paul says I work part-time at the Workers' Comp office, which is part of the Department of Labor. Early this week, I saw that 3 eye injuries involving foreign objects in the eye had occurred at Cortec in a 4-month period. I was a machinery technician in the Coast Guard Reserves for 6 years, and I do not remember a single eye injury ever occurring. The Coast Guard is very strict about wearing safety goggles. It occurs to me that Cortec may not have a strict safety goggle policy. The OSHA office is right next to my workers' comp office, so I, under the adage, if you see something, say something, I noticed the case numbers and dates of these eye injuries on a piece of paper and went next door. I saw a man and a woman standing near the photocopier, and I asked, "Are you OSHA?" They replied, "Yes. How can we help you?" I briefly told them of my safety concerns. They asked my name, and I told them, then hurried back to my office to be available to answer the phone. I have a right, in fact a duty, to take any safety concerns directly to OSHA. I do not need anyone's permission, so I told no one of my visit to OSHA. OSHA should keep my name confidential. Otherwise, many people would be inhibited from sharing safety concerns with OSHA, and it would prevent OSHA from performing its function. OSHA did not keep my name confidential. When I arrived at work on the Friday, which is March 25, I was immediately summoned into the office of Joanne Fullerton, the director of Workers' Comp. Nina, my immediate supervisor, was present, but didn't say anything. The office door was closed, and I was berated for a half an hour for going to OSHA. Joanne raised her voice several times. Joanne said she thought what I did was right. But her boss, the director of labor, one David Del Isola, had phoned her and was very angry at me, and I was never to do this again. So somebody at OSHA calls the director of labor and rats out Paul Zerzan.
Oh, that sounds like a violation of confidentiality.
Joanne told me on several occasions that Del Isola, that he is a political appointee from the governor's office, and she has often led me to believe she is afraid of him. At Friday's meeting, Joanne told me that Cortec is very powerful on Guam. A parenthetical insertion here, Jose. I went to the chamber meeting today where Mr. Ho, the owner of Cortec and several other other businesses, was the guest speaker. I'll leave that aside for now. Joanne, that Cortec is very powerful on Guam. She stressed this several times, and that since it's an election year, I quote her words here, politics is more important than safety. And she basically cautioned me about rocking the boat. She didn't use those words, but that was the gist of her message. Would have been appropriate since Paul spent time in the Coast Guard Reserve, right? Now, this story does not add up. It makes no sense to me. Nobody benefits from job injuries. Job safety has nothing to do with politics. Afraid Paul's a little bit naive here. Cortec should have a vested interest in preventing eye injuries, and I raised objections about this in this meeting. This provoked Joanne into shouting at me, and after 30 minutes, it was clear to me that the meeting would not end until I agreed to do what I was told and never report safety concerns to OSHA. I believe this story is about such severe dysfunction in government that it constitutes an evil contempt for the public interest, and this should be reported in the press. He said he'll notarize a statement if I so desire. Okay, the next chapter. I arrived at work today at 12:30 and was assigned to shredding papers. I don't know, you put a guy who's breached confidentiality in charge of shredding papers? Looked like a setup to me. For the first time ever, I was not allowed access to the files. It was obvious that my supervisor had gotten wind of my making a big stir over the issue of eye safety. So I told her that I received a phone call from the federal OSHA office in Hawaii, and they wanted the names of the work sites where the eye accidents occurred. She called in someone from the Department of Labor, who then phoned Gerard Tovis, the deputy director of the Department of Labor, and he came down to talk to me. I was very upfront about my concern over eye safety at Cortec and who I have contacted over this issue. He sent me home for the rest of the day.
Wow.
So I was unable to provide you with the information on the work sites that you requested. Now, this is an email that he sent to OSHA, and he copied me in. When I got home, I forwarded Gerard Tovis the email I have sent to other peoples in government, and also your email to me requesting the work sites. I would be very happy if your office would communicate with him and work on this matter. I simply expressed a safety concern about eye injuries at Cortec to OSHA on Guam, and I am astounded how things have developed. And then there's a note on the bottom from Gina Smoot. And she says, half a day, Paul. Thank you for talking with me on the phone today. As we discussed, I need more information about the eye injuries to open an inquiry into the workplace hazards. If you could please provide the job site locations where the injuries occurred it would be very helpful. And, of course, he can't do that. He got fired. So, yeah, so that's Paul Zerzan.
If I had a conspiracy-minded mind, I would think there was a cover-up. But that's only if I thought that way.
Well, and if it is, you know, the first thing you do is you call Steve Ignacio over at the police department. He will do a thorough investigation, and he will tell you if there was a cover-up from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so I hope this works out for you, Paul.
And for those who have eyes at Cortec.
Yeah, they'll still have eyes, right? Those who still can see over at Cortec. Yeah. So I guess I ought to send an email to Katanji. We've got another one for her curriculum. Does Paul Zerzan have guts? I don't know. I'm not the director of labor. All right, next one is Therese versus Lou. And once again, I apologize to cats for that reference to this being a cat fight. I'm going to start out and tell you what an executive order is. Now, governors, presidents always issue executive orders, and the ordinary purpose of an executive order is, let's turn on the Law and Order notebooks, Jose. Interstitial lawmaking. So if you have a couple of statutes that regulate something or allow something or require something and there's a gap between them, you can fill the gap, the interstices, with an executive order. And governors use executive orders, like our governor uses it to give everybody a day off after Thanksgiving. But it kind of comes with the territory. Governors don't need specific authority to issue executive orders. It's what governors do. Guam is a little different because we have a section in our Organic Act, Section 48 U.S.C., Section 1422, that deals with the powers of the governor. And one sentence in there deals with executive orders, and I'll read it to you. It says he. Now, of course, the Organic Act goes all the way back to 1950, so it probably should say they when it's talking about a governor, right? Yeah. He shall have the power to issue executive orders and regulations not in conflict with any applicable law if the legislature really pisses him off. Actually, I just added the last part there. The statute ends at the word law.
I think the governor started that first.
Yeah, I think the governor has her own approach to executive orders. So I'm going to start out here with a letter to Speaker Therese Tetlahi to the governor, dealing with Executive Order 22-11534. No, wait a minute. They're not up that high. 09. Yeah.
Feels like it.
Yeah, it sure as heck feels like it. And ironically, because the lieutenant governor was somewhere else doing something else, the executive order was countersigned by Therese Tetlahi as the acting lieutenant governor. Yeah. So she wrote a letter to Lou saying, "Half a day, Governor Leon Guerrero. As acting lieutenant governor, I have attested to the authenticity of your signature on Executive Order 2022-09 pursuant to your request. However, as I discussed with you prior to receiving the final version of the executive order, I do not believe the references made to a legislative resolution which is still pending public input via a hearing are relevant or necessary to the purpose and goals of the executive order. Executive orders during emergencies are critical tools for rapid emergency response and critical public education. They should not be used as political tools." Executive Order -09's criticism of a pending resolution and the legislature in general are potentially distracting to the public and detract from your rationale for lifting the restrictions and the extension of the public health emergency. You are welcome to submit testimony for the pending resolution. Si Juus Maase Therese M. Tetlahi, Acting Lieutenant Governor, Speaker 36 Guam Legislature. Yeah, so.
Ouch.
Therese said, I signed it because it's my job, but I don't like it, and I think it's wrong. And Therese is exactly right. Now, I'm not going to read the whole executive order. I'll just read the part here that, that really kind of rings my bell, too. Executive orders usually start out with whereases, and the whereases are kind of the factual foundation or predicate for what the executive order attempts to accomplish. Or a resolution, same thing, whereases, and then at the end you have the resolve clause for resolutions and executive orders. So the governor put stuff in this executive order that I have never ever seen, heard of, etc. And here it goes. Whereas the Emergency Powers Act, the EHPA, codified at 10 GCA Chapter 19, substantially mirrors the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, which was drafted by the CDC and revised in 2001 by the Center for Law and Public Health at Georgetown University Law Center and Johns Hopkins University, which you know if you're a tailgater, because I went into that at the very beginning. The Model Act has been passed in 33 states in various forms. Whereas under the EHPA, the governor's declaration of an emergency activates a comprehensive government response for the prevention, detection, management, and containment of public health threats and ensuring effective and timely response to a public health emergency. Okay, that makes sense, kind of bringing your readers along with you. And then she says, whereas the drafters of the resolution have not considered the broader implications associated with the ending of public health emergency. Now, no, maybe I'm making more out of this than I should, but she doesn't say authors of the legislative resolution.
She says the legislature.
She said the drafters of
the
drafters of the legislative resolution. So, ordinarily we talk about people that are responsible for bills or resolution as sponsors or authors. The drafter is the little man behind the curtain, the scrivener. Nobody knows knows or cares who the scrivener is. And you'll never find a court case that says, well, when the draftsman did this is what nobody cares what the draftsman meant. Because once the draftsman finishes his product and gives it to a member, if the member sponsors, they become the author, and it's theirs, not the draftsman anymore. So when she used drafters, I'm faced with two possibilities. Either her scrivener was sloppy and used the wrong words, or when she's talking about the drafters, she's talking about Bob and Ray.
Wow.
Who else would she be talking about?
Mm-hmm.
As we talked about the Bob and Ray resolution for more than a year. And
well, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, Chris had a better idea. So the resolution he introduces not the Bob and Ray, but it has remnants of the Bob and Ray in it. And, of course, once something is identified with a person, it kind of doesn't matter if the facts change. That's just the way the thing works. So if that's a shot at me, do I feel bad or do I wear it like a badge?
Wear it like a badge.
Absolutely. So I suppose I've got the person who drafted the resolution for the governor on. No, it's Senator Chris Duenas. So, Chris, I guess you guys are home free because I got to take all the blame for your resolution.
Have a day, Your Honor, Honorable Marine. Senator, my favorite talk show host. Yeah, and I know I at least subbed up one section of it, but I'm going to amend it. But
going back to the word drafters, if you were listening,
I was.
She's not blaming you. She's not blaming Tello and your co-sponsors. She's blaming those idiots that drafted this thing for you.
Darn it. You know what? And I heard you say you're wearing a badge, and that badge is well-deserved. But she did go ahead and go after me in her press conference this afternoon as well. So I guess I got lumped in.
Well, misery loves... Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update before the hearing. So the governor was obviously extremely perturbed, I'm sure, starting with Bob and Ray resolution, and then Chris is picking up the ball and trying to forward it into the end zone. So she was on. I guess they moved their press conference strategically, normally held on Monday, for updates on public health Wednesday. And during the question and answer period, after she read her statement on how dangerous Chris and his friends at the legislature and those pesky Republicans are, there was a question and answer. And at one point, one of the reporters basically asked, what is your message? What really do you want to say? And, particularly to Chris Duenas. And she said, well, I just feel like Chris Duenas woke up one morning and decided to end the public health emergency. And he's such a danger to our people. And what I found amazing
was... he talking about, you or Carl Nelson? Go on, Chris.
If I was part of the panel, I'd say, I will not accept Carl Nelson's position. He is the only one to maintain and hold that position as the most dangerous person on Guam.
All right.
In the room as well. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting because it was the governor herself, just upon the introduction of Bill 11, that basically not even had a public hearing yet or whatever. She was so angry even at Bill 11 that she said, well, if they think they're so smart down there, that pesky Chris Duenas, then just end the public health emergency. And and so I think, the only one who has proven, in my opinion, to be reckless in a lot of ways in handling this public health emergency has been the governor. And I think her major recklessness is just the assumption that what many of our tailgaters and other folks on the point constantly comment in the sections is that I really do believe she's accepted her position as a monarchy and really as a queen and thinks that the legislature is some sort of board of directors that just needs to sit in the corner and behave, because that's the way she's behaved. And I think this is why we're going to have hundreds of people coming out tonight. I think the testimony is already stacked up to take us to our deadline of 10 o'clock this evening. And, it's just so unfortunate because, and I know Jose has been commenting all over the place a lot of times on this issue, that if she honestly and truly ever wanted to work with the legislature and work with the people of Guam, she would have signed Bill 11 and all of this information. Here's another thing, Bob. Here's what she says in response to one of the reporters, too, that says, what you just read. The speaker took you to task on the fact that you seem to have misused the executive order process to put in a lot of, basic ancillary language in there that's not typical of an executive order. And she said, yes, I did that because I needed to educate the people. I needed to educate those pesky senators and the people of Guam. And it's like, you mean to tell me you've been holding on to this information that you could have been sending down to the legislature saying, hey, by the way, there's $2.3 million in SNAP benefits. Can we work on that in the event that the public health emergency ends? She also, and I know that from researching other jurisdictions, she also had to walk back the issue of not having use of the National Guard in saying that it's a presidential declaration to use the Guard. And it's a governor's authority to use the Guard, but wanting to have the reimbursement for all of what the Guard does, in saying that it bolsters our case. Well, there's a lot of states, and I've done my research, Bob, that have used and worked with the president to use the National Guard throughout, and have not needed whatsoever to be in a public health emergency in order to be able to use the National Guard. So I'm going to make sure that everyone that comes down tonight from the governor's office representing any fiscal matters or matters where they're making claims of the federal government, because I have the Stafford Act contained within our resolution stating what the Stafford Act and the federal government calls for when they do this kind of declaration, even from the federal level for funds. I'm going to put them on the record and have them sworn in, because that's what the legislature does when they attest to any finance issue.
Sounds good, Chris. I'm going to come tonight myself, and and I'm going to wear my special mask.
Is it going to be red?
Well, some people will say it's red. It's actually orange, of course, but
that's impossible. You never wear orange.
It's true. That's very true. No, it's actually black and white. You're going to want to make a point of capturing it when I'm down there, Chris.
Okay.
So if it's going to be that packed, I may not even be able to get in, right?
Oh, I'm sure you'll have privileged floor.
You have a special drafter seat.
We'll get you in.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. I'm not just an ordinary person coming down to testify. I'm a drafter, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And an excellent draftsman at that. But you know, I just really think obviously how personal this has become in my listening to the governor's remarks, and of course of her putting pen to paper on that issue in an executive order instead of working with the legislature, just proves the point that I've been saying from day one or from the get-go, is that she just has contempt for Bill 11, has contempt for the legislature on, you know, trying to have any association with trying to help our people and manage this emergency. And I just think that's a really, really poor demonstration of leadership, and I have to share that.
When she had her press conference and somebody asked her about the legislature, did she use her signature line? Off with their heads.
It was certainly implied. It was certainly implied.
Yeah.
She went down the line and, you know, took issue with every single and here it was when she decided to take issue with every sponsor. She said, "They didn't even call me."
Boy.
They could have picked up the phone and said, "I am introducing a resolution to end the public health emergency." And once again, I think that's just a demonstration of that lack of respect for the fact that we're co-equal branches of government. And what was really amazing as well is now she's wrapping herself in the law. Before she, you know, detested the law, contested the ability of the law to do quarantine and everything else, and now she's wrapping herself into it, saying that, oh, well, she was a part of the legislature when that law was drafted. And so obviously there is simply, I'm sure at that time, you know, as a senator, she constantly wanted information from the governor's office in order to guide the legislature. But I guess the tables have turned. So
yeah. Well, you know, when she started out, when I had to stop and listen to a National Guard, stop out on Marine Corps Drive and have a National Guardsman tell me to wear a mask, wash my hands, and stay 6 feet away from everybody else, that's just about incurable. There's no coming back from that kind of stupidity. If she's capable of that, then all of the rest of it really fits in and makes sense.
Yeah, I was telling Bob Ray this morning that I'm surprised she left out that whereas clause.
Yeah. Okay, Chris. Well, I'll see you tonight then.
Take care, Senator. Have a nice show.
All right. So let's. We're a little late on our break, but we'll take a short break and then we'll go to the halftime break.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
When the pandemic pandemic first started, and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds.
Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
All right, here we are back for just a few more minutes. I saw an interesting post here from David Rowley, who says she's been appointed queen by Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is one of the Davos gang, one of the New World Order types. You will own nothing. And you will be happy. You could take it straight from me, Klaus Schwab. Yeah.
No relation to Charles Schwab.
No relation whatsoever, yeah. No relation to what sailors do on board a ship. They schwab the deck. Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to go read this one more time. The third whereas on this page, whereas the drafters of the legislative resolution have not considered the broader implications associated with the ending of the public health emergency. Now, I mentioned earlier, I could be just sloppy drafting, or it could be aimed straight at me, since, you know, I made no bones about being the draftsman of the Bob and Ray resolution. Ray came up with the idea and said, Bob, can't we do one of those kinds of resolutions like the Emergency Health Powers Act contemplates to end the emergency? And I said, sure, let me get to my word processor. And I did. And we sent it over to the legislature, angering 2 senators because I didn't ask them for permission to put their names on the draft. That would be Tello and Mary Torres. Tello I could understand because Ray and I had her on the show for about his show for about a half an hour one time.
Exactly the day before.
Yeah, trying to explain to her what it was about. And I think finally a commercial break saved us. But anyhow, if that's what the governor means by whereas the drafters of the legislative resolution have not considered the broader implications associating with ending the public health emergency, I drafted it, and I think I probably did more considering of the broader implications, Governor, than you did. And in that case, I'm not being boastful. I'm damning myself with faint praise. Yeah. Okay, is it time for the big halftime show yet, Jose?
It's time.
Okay, so here we go, the big halftime show. I'll be back in about 7 minutes.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Talking peace. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Negotiators from Russia and Ukraine returning to the bargaining table today in Istanbul. But Secretary of State Blinken doesn't appear to be very optimistic, telling reporters in Morocco early today he doesn't see much real seriousness on Russia's part. The Russians say they are pulling back troops from around Kiev. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby warns that could be a ruse.
Russia has failed in its objective of capturing Kyiv. It's failed in its objective of subjugating Ukraine. But they can still inflict massive brutality on the country, including on Kyiv.
Russian attacks continue in the southeast part of Ukraine.
Mariupol continuing to be shelled and reduced to rubble, and in the city of Mykolaiv, which is about 70 miles to the east of Odessa in that Black Sea port area. Mykolaiv, a rocket hitting an administrative building believed to have killed 12 possibly and injured up to 22. Another rocket landing in a playground nearby to an apartment complex that absolutely shattered windows and left shrapnel all over the place.
Fox's Griff Jenkins in in western Ukraine. 3 weeks before its scheduled expiration, a lawsuit seeks to end the federal mask mandate in the skies.
The state of Florida, joined by 20 other states, has filed an action against the Biden administration and multiple parties within to challenge the mandatory mask mandate within transportation hubs and on airplanes.
Florida's Attorney General Ashley Moody says 3/4 of the incidents of unruly passengers are because of the mask mandate. The lawsuit says the government has overstepped its authority imposing it. The Food and Drug Administration okaying a second booster shot for the Pfizer and Moderna coronavirus vaccines for people over 50 or younger people with compromised immune systems. It's been 4 months since their first booster. America is listening to Fox News.
When the pandemic first started and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds.
Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal funds.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
The House Select Committee on January 6th has reportedly discovered a several hours-long gap in official White House phone records from that day.
Whom did the president call and what did they talk about between 11:17 a.m. and 6:54 p.m. on January 6th as rioters stormed the Capitol? At a January 6th midday rally, the president whipped up his supporters. But it's unclear who the president talked to after that. It's known that at 2:26, Mr. Trump tried to phone Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, mistakenly reaching Senator Mike Lee. Also AWOL from the records, a screaming match between the president and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy beseeched the president to convince the rioters to stand down.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. The committee wants to know if then-President Trump used personal phones that day, potentially borrowed from staffers. A hearing is scheduled today on a proposed settlement from last year's condominium tower collapse in South Florida.
The $83 million settlement would cover people who lost property and belongings when the Champlain Towers South condo collapsed last June, killing 98. A preliminary order by the judge says that each unit owner will be paid a share based on their ownership portion of a condo and for personal items that were lost, paid for by insurance and the sale of the condo property. The proposed settlement does not include money for wrongful death claims stemming from the collapse. The settlement stems from a lawsuit that contends that work on an adjacent condo building damaged and destabilized the Champlain Towers, which already needed structural repair. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
The governors of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences will meet virtually today to discuss potential consequences for actor Will Smith for slapping comedian Chris Rock at Sunday's Oscar Awards show. 4-time Emmy Award-winning television director Marvin Chomsky has died at the age of 92. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
All right, so here we are, second half of Tall Tales after that great halftime show that we enjoy every day of the week, except Saturday and Sunday. What a shame. And I'm going to jump back into the executive order here that the governor promulgated last night and the eve of a public hearing on Chris Duenas' resolution. So I spent a little time here taking a bow for being recognized as a drafter of the resolution that the governor seems to hate so much. So I'll pick it up with there. Whereas the drafters of the legislative resolution have not considered the broader implications associated with ending the public health emergency, and whereas the EHPA, like the Model Act before it, is designed to facilitate rapid and flexible response in light of the community's needs during the public health emergency, the EHPA has enabled us to coordinate critical services during this emergency, including mass testing clinics, mass vaccination clinics, and ultimately treatment clinics, plus allowing or deputizing my consigliere to rent the 19th floor for quarantine purposes. Yeah, I just added that in for fun. It has empowered us to identify issues affecting more vulnerable populations within our community and direct resources to address them. It has enabled us to fill shortfalls in personnel by pooling healthcare providers from other agencies to assist in our response efforts. And whereas the EPA, under the EHPA, I have issued numerous executive orders to address diverse issues relating to the pandemic that fell outside the scope of direct medical response, including the prohibition on price gouging, the authorization for overtime to our overextended government frontliners, like Becky Respicio and Alice Tyrone, two unclassified employees that ran the 19th floor. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the governor didn't put it in here, but if you were asked her, she'd say, it was the least I could do.
Which executive order prohibited the sale of Zorries and underwear?
That was one of the very first ones, because they're not essential. Yeah. Yeah, let them go barefoot, she said. It has enabled us to fulfill shortfalls in personnel by pooling healthcare providers from other agencies to assist in our response efforts. Whereas under the EHPA, I issued numerous, to address diverse health issues to the pandemic that fell outside the ordinary scope of medical response. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go on past that part. I have ordered that government agencies, including the legislature, may hold public meetings via teleconferencing. Now, how does she, if I were a senator, this would be enough right here. You don't order the legislature to do anything, Governor.
Well, most of them work for Adaloop, so they're not really legislators.
That's very true, yeah. Yeah, but about 10 of them probably didn't mind, yeah. Oh, we got the order from the governor? Yeah, okay, we'll do that teleconferencing thing then. Yeah. I established and ultimately suspended a moratorium on foreclosures and evictions, implemented differential pay processes for essential employees in close proximity to infected populations, enabled DPHSS to establish temporary guidance, allowing for importation and distribution of Wuhan virus commodities, and temporarily suspended examination requirements for our teachers. Now, she didn't need that executive order power to do an awful lot of these things.
Like the price gouging?
Yeah.
That's already a law.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas 10 GCA Section 63-500 states in relevant part that the Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard, I may order the National Guard into active military service during a state emergency. In the absence of a state emergency, my ability to activate let's see, inadequately account for the impact that the deactivating and reactivating would have. Wait a minute, I'm missing something here. Whereas most of the measures identified above could have been implemented by legislation, but were not. While it is true that unlike the executive branch, the legislature does not have the operational capacity to effectuate a rapid response to emergency needs as they develop, the legislature is empowered to pass bills to perfect the transition of those measures to a non-emergency state.
Bill 11.
Yeah. Whereas while other U.S. jurisdictions have ended their Wuhan virus public health emergencies, their legislatures, recognizing that such an action carries consequences for the numerous initiatives and programs established from the declaration of an emergency, passed prior legislation to ensure the continuity of such services and programs, or implemented sunset provisions to allow the agencies, etc. Whereas the sponsors of this legislation have failed to transition emergency measures to permanent agency operations. Well, the sponsors of this legislative resolution are 5 members of the minority. So look to your Democrat majority for that one, Governor. And interesting, she uses sponsors here. She uses drafters in the other situation. So I think my suspicion is well-founded.
Well, because she is female, she's a little emotional in writing this. I'd say that if I was sexist, though.
Yeah, but you're not.
But I'm not.
Yeah. Whereas, to be clear, ending the public health emergency would also not give the legislature power over grant monies received pursuant to the ARPA. However, the executive branch use of these funds is still subject to federal oversight. whereas federal rules limit the use of ARPA funds to categories of spending that were specifically addressed the Wuhan virus pandemic, such as replacing lost public sector revenue, responding to the negative economic impacts of the pandemic by supporting individuals and households, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas it's for this reason I have time and again rejected language in proposed legislation that purports to direct the spending of ARPA funds, especially for items that on their face are not related to the public health emergency. Now, why is this in this resolution? There's nothing to do.
Well, actually, it's a good tool for the draft or the sponsors.
Yeah.
To add that to the reason why this has to be, the resolution has to pass.
Yeah.
Because she, I'm going to use a word that's a little pejorative, but she's ad hominem. She's that arrogant to put a testimony in an executive order.
Exactly. Yeah, so she goes off and criticizes them because they are constantly trying to interfere with her use of ARPA funds. It's nothing to do with this executive order.
Zero.
Yeah, but she's doing it. It's handy, and people will cover it because it's here, right?
I don't need to testify because I do it my own way.
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't need to see my testify. Or, yeah, they asked Governor. The speaker invited you to submit testimony to the public hearing. Do you have testimony for the public hearing? Testimony? I don't need no stinking testimony, the governor said. Yeah. She said, I established and ultimately suspended a moratorium on foreclosures. Let's see, I've already read that part of it. Yeah. Whereas it's for this reason I have time and again rejected language and proposed language that purports to direct the spending of ARPA funds, especially for items that on their face are not related to the public health emergency. It's for this reason that I have declined to implement broader categories of direct aid that cannot be legitimately traced to individuals and households that were presumed to be negatively impacted by the pandemic. I guess she's been getting too much stuff from Jim Moylan. This is kind of like her letter. It's not an executive order. It's her letter to the legislature. Dear Therese, here are some things that you ought to consider. Whereas Guam is approved to receive an average of $2.3 million in emergency allotments under SNAP, which affects over 15,000 households, Guam is true that such states as Florida, Idaho, Arkansas, and Montana have stopped issuing these emergency allotments, but it cannot be overstated how critical these funds are to our indigent population. So I'm not going to spend any more time on this. I'm going to go back and read Theresa's letter and then comment on it a little bit. She says, Therese says, as acting lieutenant governor, I attested to the authenticity of your signature on the executive order pursuant to your request. However, as I discussed with you prior to receiving the final version of Executive Order 2022-09, I do not believe the references made to a legislative resolution, which is still pending public input via hearing, are relevant or necessary to the purpose and goals of the executive order. Executive orders during emergencies are critical tools for rapid emergency response and critical public education. They should not be used as political tools. Executive Order 2022-09 criticisms of a pending resolution and the legislature in general are potentially distracting to the public and detract from your rationale. So Therese is very gentlemanly and polite in her approach to it, whereas, as I would say, she has every right to be she has every right to be very, very angry. Not so angry that she'd get up and walk up and slap Lou's face, the governor's face, but still very angry. She's very polite and very measured. And she uses the word, she says executive orders should not be used as political tools. Well, you know, people, I think, including Therese, sometimes are too free with their use of the word political. I hear people say things like, you know what happened over at my department today? They appointed Smucka Huckowitz. To be in charge of the division. He's the least qualified guy there. Well, why did they appoint him? It's just politics. Well, it wasn't politics. Politics means Democrat and Republican. That's what politics means. If you're trying to say they appointed him for non-merit factors, and you know what the non-merit factors are, state it. But the word political has a particular meaning. And I'm going to take issue with Therese. I agree with what she said. I agree with the tone in her letter. But what the governor did in her executive order is not political. It's personal. She is angry. She would do whatever she can to punish the legislature. If she can't punish them, she's going to give them a really good, what I referred to yesterday as a Class A ass chewing. And that's exactly what she did.
Again, she's acting as she's scorned. Exactly. If I was a sexist.
Yeah, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Problem is, we don't know what a woman is anymore. We still know what hell and scorn are. We just don't know what a woman is, right?
I'm not qualified as a biologist.
Yeah. So that's what this is. This is personal angst. She's not trying to score any political points here. In fact, I think for anyone who's followed this, she's going to lose political points. There will be some people who read this exchange and they're going to say, no more of that. Because the Lord Acton's saying about power is once again proven to be true. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And going back again to the checkpoints on Marine Corps Drive, anybody who would do that for no reason whatsoever, just because it can be done, should not be trusted with the kind of power that the governor is wielding. Anyhow, I'm going to go to the hearing tonight. I don't know how long I'll last. You know, when I finish this show, believe it looks really easy, I suspect, but when I finish the show, I'm kind of beat, kind of tired. I suppose you are too, Jose?
Well, that was exhausting to listen to. You know, just a real quick compare and contrast between Senator Terlahi and Governor Leon Guerrero is the amount of calmness that Therese Terlahi exudes, her temperance, her prudence in the way she chooses her words. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it so many times when she's even having this discourse with her own party members in the legislature, just constant attacks, constant insinuations, and she just remains calm and she gets her point across. Yeah. While we have to listen to what Leon wrote in here, and we're not so much listening to what she's writing, but the tone and how just really off-putting it is.
It is.
And that's the big difference.
It's a big difference, and it's counterproductive. It does not work for someone who carries on in that particular fashion. Okay, enough Executive Order 2022. Oh, yeah. And then, you know, I got to make one more point here, and that's this. Being jacked around. I don't like to be jacked around. I don't think anybody likes to be jacked around. Even the guy who calls in when we're heading for Churchill Downs and he's in a drive-through. I don't think he even likes to be jacked around. So, you know, when there are people in authority who tell you to do this, do that, even things you don't like, you ordinarily go along with it. And it's not the kind of thing that it doesn't cause me to become angry. But when someone in that position deliberately jacks me around, that's a different story. And that's exactly what the governor has done. I go back to the checkpoint on Marine Corps Drive. That's just jacking us around. And then this thing about the mask mandate. We're probably the last place in the world, except Lower Slobovia, that still has a mask mandate in place. So she says, I will end the mask mandate as soon as Jupiter aligns with Mars.
It's like she reenacted the card score just to calculate when she's going to do that.
Yeah. As soon as the dealer, the poker dealer, and the first poker table in Caesars in Las Vegas turns up a one-eyed jack, the countdown starts. 15 days after that, then I will start the second 15-day countdown. So you may, if you're running out of masks, you better buy some more, because I don't know how long this is going to take, and certainly you don't. As sick as you are wearing masks, as much as you've read about how useless they are, because the virus is spread by little droplets that are not filtered out by any of the masks except the 9221, or there's a number for it. Just the cloth masks or surgical masks that we wear don't filter out anything.
N95 or N85.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. Other than that, they're absolutely useless. And, everybody knows that. And everybody, even the military, has done away with the silliness. But we have to say, well, as soon as, it's kind of like Easter. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the vernal equinox. What day will that be? Oh, I don't know.
You know what's interesting is they did away with the mask mandate right away on base, just like that.
Yeah.
Effective immediately. They didn't need trigonometry.
No. Calculus, astronomy or astrology.
Yeah, consulting the runes.
Yeah, and that's what I call jacking around. Clearly, is jacking around. So, no tolerance. Tolerance for the rule of law. Tolerance for those who are in authority and enforce the rule of law. Tolerance, acceptance, celebration. Tolerance for being jacked around, minus. And that's where our governor is coming from right now. She's just taking this opportunity to jack us around. All right, let's head for a seventh inning stretch at Wrigley Field.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing The Point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
A little stretch here, the seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field. I notice somebody's calling in. Unfortunately, Jose, my stack is not stacking up, so you're going to have to tell me who it is.
Our Keith is on the line.
R. Keith. All right. Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
You know, I got to say, as much as I love pounding on the governor as much as the next person, perhaps even more so, some of the blame also has to be put or spread around to the segment of the population that still walks around clutching its pearls or its mask, as the case may be, like it's binky, it's blanket. You still drive down the street and see people with their windows up and their masks on, or wearing two masks. And I saw one guy wearing a respirator in a supermarket. It just defies logic. And, there's a poll that the Daily Compost has put out on a number of occasions. And the current poll is, should the mask mandate be let go? No, stopped. And half the votes say no. Now, that is, whether that's reflective of the population as a whole or the Daily Compost readership, I have no idea. But, there really is a large segment of the population that I have to think is just ignorant and not aware of all the things that you brought up. The fact that, come on, these little paper masks aren't doing a damn thing. But it's a security blanket for them.
Our Keith, I wish I had started wearing my mask a couple days ago, because in this new executive order, the governor says we don't have to wear masks outdoors anymore.
Well, that's nice of her, isn't it?
Yeah.
I stopped doing that. Well, I've never done that, actually.
Yeah, I never wore a mask outdoors, and now I realize what I missed, because I could take advantage of that executive order if I'd just been wearing my mask.
I know. You missed out on all the relief.
Yeah. Well, I've used this analogy before, but her approach to doing kind things for the general public is kind of like the guy who was asked why he kept hitting himself on the head with a hammer. And the answer was because it felt so good when he stopped.
I liken her behavior with regards to all this, to sort of, who's the British officer? Charles. Anyway, to sort of old-fashioned alms for the, alms. Oh, please, thank you, Governor.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the beans that you've given us. I'm so grateful.
Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
Thank you. Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist. That's what I was thinking of.
Thank you, sir. Can I have another?
Yeah. We should all be so grateful for the free beans that she gives us every couple months.
Or Animal House, where the guy's getting paddled and asking for another.
Yes. Not exactly a highbrow screen or a highbrow scene in cinematic history, but funny nonetheless.
Well, and what we're going through now would be funny if it weren't so tragic.
Oh yeah, and I still, a couple times I still get these dirty looks as I rip the mask off the moment I walk out the door of whatever facility, and I don't put it on until my foot has crossed the threshold. Minimum mask time, please. And I still get dirty stares. Like, how dare you approach this building within 100 feet without a mask?
Absolutely.
Oh, please, read.
Well, it was, I mentioned the other day that wearing masks for Democrats is like wearing MAGA hats for Republicans. It's not the effectiveness, it's the symbolism that counts.
Yeah. There was a quote from the late Rush Limbaugh that he used very early on in his career, and I found it to be so, spot on. when he described the Democrats, and the more progressive they get, the more truthful this statement is, which is symbolism over substance.
Yep. That's where we are with these. That's why she won't let it go. There's no medical reason. There's no logic behind it whatsoever. But it's going to be 15 days after something, and then it's going to be 15 days after that. So we don't even know how much longer it's going to be. Well, I'm glad you called in, Arky.
Remember, she belongs to the party of science.
True enough. Yeah, the science is settled on that particular matter. Well, thanks for calling, Arky.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
All righty. So I got another call coming in here, but I don't have my stack, so I don't know who it is. So I'm sure Jose will tell me.
CW would like to make another point.
CW?
CW.
The only CW I know is C.W. Moss from Bonnie and Clyde. Remember him?
Yeah, I don't think this one's him.
This is probably not
Probably
him.
not.
Yeah. Hello, CW.
Or C.W. Fields.
Okay.
Are you there?
Good, yeah.
Hey, I'd just like to point out that there's only two groups of people who really want to keep the masks in place.
Uh-huh.
That's really the criminals and the governor, or the criminals and the Democrats. Well, there's really only one group of people who wants to keep the mask on then.
Hey, CW, that sounds like something I'd say. Good job.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, thanks for calling, CW. Yeah, yeah, very good. Well, it is a real advantage for armed robbers, because ordinarily you see somebody walking into a store with a mask on, you get a little bit apprehensive. But now, if you see somebody walking in without a mask, you think, hey, that guy's up to no good. Okay, I had a caller on one, but he hung up. I got another caller on two here. Let's find out who that is.
Our Carl is on line 2.
The most dangerous man in the room. What happened to line 1?
Line 1 just wanted to find out, just wanted to remark that W.C. Fields is who he remembers.
Oh, yeah, not C.W. Fields, W.C. Fields,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Met a lady who drove me to drink. Forgot to thank her. All right, the most dangerous man in the room, R. Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Good afternoon, Jose, and international Tall Tales listening audience. I just wanted to chime in. My major in college was psychology. I got a BS in psychology, and please don't say the obvious.
All right. That's all they offer.
Yeah.
There's nothing else in psychology but BS. But go on.
Yeah, I got a little taste of humanistic psychology and all kinds of other rigmarole. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to comment, that I think a lot of people have gotten pretty close to an equivalent of a master's degree in psychology, watching human behavior the last 5 or so years. I wasn't a conspiracy theorist, until I went through the last 5 or so years, and then some of my some of my conspiracy theorist friends, I noticed some of them seemed to be a little bit prophetic. So I began to rethink that. I just would like to share a quote. I think it's one of the best quotes and most appropriate for these times. And it's by the author Charles Mackay. He wrote a book that still sells really well. He wrote it in the second half of the 1800s. And it still sells extremely well. It's called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it's a chronicle of the times in history when people went barking mad en masse. And I think we have witnessed that the last few years, sort of a mass psychosis. And his quote goes, "Man, it has been well said, think in herds. It will be seen that they go mad in herds, while they only recover their senses slowly, one by one." And wow, is that ever true? I used to wonder. Yeah, I saw the stories about what happened in Germany, which was an industrialized country, a quote Christian country, developed for its time, and I was wondering how in the world did that ever happen? And thank goodness it could never possibly happen today. But watching what I've seen in the last 5 years, I'm no longer confident that something like that couldn't happen. There are very sophisticated people who have studied what buttons to press, in our brains and our emotions, and just what happened after George Floyd. I mean, I never thought I'd live to see those kind of mass riots and destructive rioting, but it happened. So I'm very uneasy about human nature. We are extremely flawed, and I'm not saying that I'm different than other people. I'm saying I have a human nature too. And I read in one book that we have over 200 mental biases built into our minds, 200 that distort reality in some way. And so I have that. Everyone has it. So it's really just really fascinating to watch what's happening. And it's pretty close to an equivalent of a master's degree in psychology, watching this stuff. If you ponder and think about things and observe, it's very extremely educational. And before I hang up, I'd like to share one quick quote. I've been given the nickname of the most dangerous man, and I saw a quote by H.L. Mencken.
What do you mean, nickname? Go on.
Okay. But there's a really appropriate H.L. Mencken quote that I saw some time ago, and it really it ties into that. Mencken wrote, "The most dangerous man or woman," quote in parentheses, "or woman, to any government is a man who is able to think things out for himself." And fortunately, we have a lot of people still who are thinking things out for themselves and are thinking independently and not just with the crowds, which is a very dangerous thing. Anyway, Bob, that's my 2 bits, and thank you for allowing me to chime in. I always appreciate it.
Well, we look forward to your calls there. You had a certain cachet to the program, being the most dangerous man in the room and all, so thank you, R. Carl. And I got another call coming out. I have a stack that tells that where Jose can type the name of the caller and what he wants to call, but it's temporarily down, so I got to wait for the Jose to get the call.
You have Johnny Utah on the line.
The very Johnny Utah. You know what? I think I'm going to go to Churchill Downs and go straight from Louisville, Kentucky to Salt Lake City, Utah, and entertain Johnny Utah. Sorry, Johnny Utah.
When the pandemic first started, and we had no idea that it was going to affect our business till March of 2020. Orders from public health, roadblocks, restriction. It was a very hard time for me. What really has saved my business is the SBA and the PPP program. I felt keeping the employees was so important because I had faith that my government would help me later, the federal government. We applied and we received 2 PPP loans equaling up to $425,000. That money saved me because it's been 2 years. I think 80 or 90% of the restaurants have closed. The only reason I'm here because of my devoted clientele and the federal government.
Thank you for helping save jobs with federal funds.
Thank you to the federal government for all the federal ARP money.
Thank you for the federal fund.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate with cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Brothers put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. Peeking at the Facebook comments here, and sometimes we have people that post on Facebook that cut right straight to the chase. And today that's Lonnie Salas. Lonnie Salas says, I'm not afraid of the Wuhan virus. I'm tired of wearing the mask because it's ruining my makeup. Yeah, okay. I'm with you 100%, Lonnie. So, the way things are going nowadays, there should be somewhere where you could make a claim to be reimbursed for the ruined makeup, right, Jose?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't run.
Yeah, so we head from Churchill Downs to Salt Lake City and say hello to Johnny Utah. Hello, Johnny Utah.
Hello, Judge Bob. Hello?
Yeah.
Hey, Judge Bob. Hey, so I listened to the entire afternoon dissertation by the governor on her reasoning for not ungrounding the island of Guam, and it was interesting, especially listening to it from afar, and and being off of Guam for a period of time and looking at it from the outside in. Quite an interesting thing. She spoke to herself in the third person numerous times, which I thought that was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. I almost peed myself. And she went on and on and on about how she's going to teach the people of Guam a lesson and educate them on what they don't know. And when it got to the reporters asking questions, there was some good questions that got asked, really good questions, especially towards the end. Once you got past the fake news questions, one of the reporters flat out asked her, "Hey, do you think that the adults on Guam are responsible enough to decide whether they want to wear a mask or not?" And I thought she was going to have a heart attack. I thought she was going to lose it right there on the screen, and she that's when she went into third person talk and started going on into her basically scolding the reporter in a nice way. She wasn't rude, but she wasn't nice. So it was fun. It was fun. It was good entertainment. I enjoyed listening to it.
Well, that's the kind of the saving grace, isn't it? That as I said earlier, a lot of this stuff would be humorous if it weren't so tragic.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
If it's not too hard, Johnny Utah, I've been here for almost 2 hours here, slaving over a hot microphone.
I was going to see. Well, I just wanted to know, because I won't be able to be there. If I was there, I'd be right there at that hearing listening to you speak. I was wondering if you could give just a short brief of what it is that you're going to say there, maybe.
Actually, I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just.
I thought you were going to get it.
I'm going to go, but I'm not going to testify.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, it would freak them out if you got up there and started testifying. They wouldn't know how to respond.
Probably not. Yeah, no, it just doesn't work out very well for my timetable, Johnny Utah. I do testify frequently, especially not with this bogus on-screen testimony, but actually going and testifying live. And I was tempted, but it just doesn't work into my timetable right now.
Understand. And I agree with you that she is referring to you and Ray in that executive order. Completely. That's totally what she's saying, what she's doing.
Well, I couldn't be happier.
You got a notch in the belt today.
Yes, sir.
That's all I was going to say, Judge Bob. I love your show. You guys be safe and keep up the good fight.
Okay, well, you got to hold the fort down for us over there in Salt Lake City then, Johnny Utah.
Well, other than our Rhino senator, we got Mike Lee. I don't want to mention the other guy's name. We're working on it.
Okay, Johnny Utah. Talk to you later, okay?
All right, bye-bye.
So long. Yeah, so Johnny Utah, Johnny Utah used to live here. He moved away, but he's really seems to be involved with what's going on here. He probably knows more about what's going on than some of the folks that are physically present on our island. I don't want to mention, well, I'll leave some of the folks in the governor's office out of this for today. Okay, I got about 9 more minutes to go. I think I got enough time to cover the next item on the card here before I have to shove off. The next item on the card is Wonpat 10 versus Nelson. And this goes to the former Speaker of the Guam Legislature, whose name is Judy Wonpat 10. Her name used to be Judy Wonpat, but as so often happens here on Tall Tales, her Tall Tales name is Judy Wonpat 10. And I suppose if she had a younger brother, his name would be Herman Wonpat 9, but maybe not. I don't know. So let me get into this article here, and then I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. This ran in the Post. Wonpat 10 confirms delegate run. Former Speaker Judy Wonpat 10 has confirmed she's running for the non-voting delegate seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in this year's election, while other former senators seek a comeback in the Guam legislature. For now, I'll confirm I'm running for Congress, Wonpat 10 told the Guam Daily Post. Political campaign signs have started to spring up in some of Guam's high-traffic areas for what's hoped to be a post-pandemic election. Political signs have started, as were former Senator Kelly Marsh Titano, a Democrat, confirmed Tuesday she's considering running for senator this year after receiving her requested senatorial packet from the Election Commission. Now, I have a hard time voting for somebody who doesn't know what her own name is. Just like I have a hard time voting for somebody who doesn't figure out whether she wants to vote for a bill until her name is called in the voting file. That would be Amanda Shelton. But Kelly Marsh put her name in print. Her name on the ballot is Kelly Marsh. But her name, she often uses this name, Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis. And it just takes too long to go through this parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis. So I've invented a Tall Tales convention that for Tall Tales purposes, the word parenthesis is pronounced like this. That therefore I can say Kelly Marsh Titano much faster than Kelly Marsh parenthesis Titano close parenthesis. So if she doesn't know if she's Kelly Marsh or Kelly Marsh Titano, I wonder what else she is at sea with herself about. You know, the prevailing level of ignorance in this year of 2022 is really shocking. You know, We have somebody who wants to be on the Supreme Court who doesn't know what a woman is. We have a senator in the legislature who can't decide if she's going to vote for a veto override until her name is called in the voting file. We have someone who was a senator and may want to be a senator again who can't decide what her name is. So with all of this uncertainty, it's no wonder that I get the feeling from time to time that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Senator Kelly Marsh Titano, a Democrat, confirmed Tuesday she's considering running again for senator this year after receiving her requested senatorial candidate package from the Election Commission. Also eyeing potential runs were former Republican Senators Luis Muñoz and Jesse Lujan. I suspect that Luis Muñoz ran out of all of the federal funds that she was getting at the same time she was drawing her senatorial salary. Juan Pat, as you were Juan Pat 10, a former chairperson of the Democrat Party, requested and received a delegate candidate packet from the GEC. She served 9 terms in the legislature. Would it be fair to say that she is a professional politician? And was the first woman to serve as Speaker. She's among the children of the first Guam delegate to Congress, Antonio Juan Pat. Just Antonio Juan Pat, not Antonio Juan Pat 10. So this is very important because we have deluded ourselves into thinking here on the island that political offices are hereditary. If your aunt, uncle, sister, brother, cousin, father, grandfather, whatever, was a senator, then, well, you ought to run because, you know, Judy, you ought to run for Washington delegate. Remember, your dad was a delegate. Yeah. She served 9 terms in the legislature, was first woman to serve as Speaker. And I'll never forget how she got to be Speaker. You recall that Speaker Senator Tony Ompenko died in the middle of a term. So we had a runoff election to replace Republican Tony Ompenko, and B.J. Cruz was elected. This shifted the balance of power in the legislature from Republican to Democrat. 8 Republicans became 7 Republicans facing off against 8 Democrats. So there was a little bit of arguing over what happened to the speakership because the speaker is elected by the legislature and the majority always elects the speaker. New majority, new speaker, right? Well, you know, there was an argument that the runoff was not to replace the speaker. It was just to replace Ompenko. And therefore, Mark Forbes should continue on as speaker. I don't think even Mark Forbes advanced that argument.
Was this Gavelgate?
This was Gavelgate, yeah. This was Gavelgate. So the Democrats took the necessary action to install Juan Pat as the speaker. Ray Tenorio was the acting speaker. He should never let Ray Tenorio be acting anything, you know.
He likes to grab things.
Yeah, but he should never be acting anything. They ought to put checkpoints at the beginning and ending of Broadway in case he ever wants to be an actor. That would be a disaster. So Juan Pat went up to get the gavel, and she and Tenorio had a gavel wrestling match. And Tenorio was much better at wrestling the gavel than Juan Pat was, but she ultimately prevailed. A scene we'll never forget. All right, so we come to the end of another perfect day, so it's once again time for me to turn and look right at you and say, let's go, Brandon!
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
More talks today on Jack Callahan, Fox News. Negotiations between teams from Russia and Ukraine resuming in a few hours in Istanbul, Turkey. Ukraine's delegation laying out a framework under which the country would declare its neutrality with its security guaranteed by other nations. Russia claims it's drawing down its forces near Kiev, but Ukraine's President Zelensky is skeptical.
In a late-night address, Zelensky stressed Ukraine is not easing off its defensive efforts.
Yes. We can call the signals we hear from the negotiating platform positive, but these signals do not drown out the blows of Russian shells. Of course, we see all the risks.
And no signs of peace in the key seaport of Mykolaiv. A Russian rocket blasting a hole in a regional government building there. The impact killing at least 12 people and wounding 22 others.
Fox's Griff Jenkins in Lviv. Reuters reports Russian forces hit industrial facilities in 3 strikes in the Khmelnytsky region of western Ukraine overnight. Ukraine's UN ambassador has told the United Nations Security Council Russian invaders have lost 17,000 troops and nearly 600 tanks, plus hundreds of aircraft and